Hello, everybody. My name is Emily Thiem, and our group did a study replication on an article from Java, and it was called Using Awareness Training to Decrease Nervous Habits in Public Speaking. And this is for SPCE 611, Section 815 in Ball State University. And we are the Eastern Standard Time group. Our group members are Danielle Austin, Carlos Carrillo, Emily Thiem, and Giselle Valencia. So the original study, it was called Using Awareness Training to Decrease Nervous Habits in Public Speaking. The authors of this study are Claire A. Spieler and Raymond Miltenberger. So basically, the title said it all. The study evaluated the effectiveness of awareness training in reducing nervous habits that occur during public speaking. And in the original study, they had 3 different nervous habits that they used, and those were pauses, tongue clicks, and inappropriate use of the word like. So in the original study, the participants were 4 university students who delivered short speeches during baseline and assessment sessions. Then after, there was awareness training that was done, and that consisted of response description and response detection. The original study resulted in reducing the participants' target behavior or nervous habit. So the purpose of the study is to evaluate the effectiveness of awareness training alone in the reduction of 4 different nervous habits in public speaking. So our group, when we replicated it, we had 4 different nervous habits that we used. And basically we wanted the awareness training to show us and make us aware of when we were doing the behavior. So when we were clicking the pen or pausing or saying So in our study, the participants were also 4 university students, Danielle, Carlos, Giselle, and myself, Emily. And the target behaviors that we did specifically are clicking of pen, filler phrases, pauses, and fidgeting. So now I'll go through the operational definitions of each of the behaviors. So pausing is defined as not making verbal sounds for at least 2 seconds, usually accompanied with swallowing, looking up with eyes, or putting hand near mouth. Non-occurrences would be appropriate pauses like changing the subject. So this was my behavior, and then we go to Danielle's behavior, which was filler phrases. A filler phrase is defined as any occurrence of a speech, sound, or word, such as or that had no semantic meaning in a sentence. Occurrences of filler phrases are scored upon the ending of each speech sound. So basically, the beginning is right when she starts speaking or starts saying and then the ending of that is when she stops saying and that is 1 occurrence. And then fidgeting was Carlos's behavior. And fidgeting is defined as fiddling with one's paper, scratching oneself, or leg shaking. It is not when he was crossing his arms or while holding a presentation clicker. And the last behavior is pen clicking, and this was Giselle's behavior. The operational definition for pen clicking is repeated pressing of the button of a retractable pen, which produces a clicking sound. So non-examples would be when she was holding or waving the pen, but she was not pressing the button. So for the setting of this study, all of the 4 participants had the same setting regardless of the different limitations of our study. And that setting was held in a private room in the participant's home where no noise or light distraction occurred. The materials used by the participants included a video camera to record the speeches to be sent to other group members to play the experimenter to help with IOA data and treatment fidelity. We also needed internet connection to be able to record those videos and send them. A timer was used in 2 separate parts of the study. It was used in a 10-minute preparation phase of the speech, and also a 3-minute time limit for the speech itself. A notepad and pen was used in both the preparation phase and the speech phase. So participants were given the 10 minutes to prepare for the speech and were able to take short notes to be used during the study. And then the last material that was used was a list of random speech topics that each participant was able to choose a topic from in preparing for their speech. For data collection, after reading the behavior definition, data collection was done by watching the videos and tallying the numbers of behaviors. And this count was measured, was the measurement used to collect data. So basically, during the data collection portion of this study, an experimenter would be briefed on what the behavior was that they were supposed to be taking data on. They would watch the video that was sent to them by the participant and would use a frequency count to tally up the amount of behaviors that were observed during each 15-second interval of the entire 3-minute speech. For the research design, we used a multiple baseline across participant design. For this, 3 out of the 4 participants were actually included in the multiple baseline across the participants. Due to different limitations, Giselle was not included in the multiple baseline, and she will discuss that later on during the limitation portion of this presentation. The remaining 3, so myself, Emily, and Carlos had, we each had the baseline and the post-awareness training assessment phase for the intervention.
Okay, so for baseline, in the baseline phase, the students were giving a maximum of 10 minutes. So all the participants got a maximum of 10 minutes to jot down ideas, kind of summarize the topic they picked. Okay, and then they would prepare a speech that would be delivered within 3 to 5 minutes duration. So the speech had to last at least 3 minutes. Okay, so in order to choose the topic, there was choices given to all the participants. They were easy topics, kind of like my first job, my favorite vacation, my favorite pet. You know, easy subjects that, you know, we want to keep it around the same difficulty level through all the choices. Okay, the topic will be changed for each speech. So the participants weren't allowed to use the same speech for the next topic, because you would practice, and that would kind of defeat the purpose of, to see if the awareness training is what's working. So you could only do 1 speech per topic, right? And then during the 10 minutes planning period, a timer was set. So it cannot exceed 10 minutes when you're organizing your speech. Okay, so and then you would make outlines, note cards, whatever you need for the speech, but you only have 10 minutes. Okay, once the 10 minutes was complete, the students will sit in front of a camera and they will record their speech. This was done in your own room where the setting was present with no noise, same lighting. We want to keep it all the same throughout the participants. Okay, so then the video recording took place in a room, right? The timer was not really visible, so you will not be distracted by the timer. You would only hear when the timer went off. Okay, the video recording will start at the beginning of the 5-minute timer. So after you prepare, then you put the timer for 5 minutes, and that's all you have. But it could go up to 3 minutes. So you don't have to. You can pass the 5 minutes, but you have to do it between 3 to 5 minutes. Okay. So feedback on the speech and everything in the baseline section was not available. So in summary, all you do for baseline is you get a speech, you get 10 minutes to prepare for it, you deliver the speech, and it cannot exceed 10 minutes. It cannot exceed 5 minutes. That was the baseline section, okay? So after that, we write down the frequency, how much behaviors happen, and that's how we're doing our data collection, right? So then, after we get a baseline and it's stable, right? Then we do the response detection and response description. And this was the beginning of the awareness training. Okay, and the response description, we're going to get the operational definitions. The researcher goes thoroughly explaining it with the participant. We get down what counts as an occurrence, what counts as a non-occurrence, what it looks like, the topography of the behavior. So once we get the description out of the way, then we do the response detection, where the participant and the researcher together, we're gonna watch that baseline video. Okay, and in that baseline, we're gonna kind of like jot down each occurrence. So we kind of this is the detection part. So we're kind of going over the speech all over again, and we want to make sure that each instance is caught by the participant. So the researcher is there to to get the IOA data also. Okay, and participants then chose the topic as they did in the baseline. So after we went over the description and the detection, then we go kind of like back into the baseline, where you have 10 minutes to prepare again, and you will be delivering a speech that has to last between 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, so once they deliver the speech during the post-awareness training phase, because the awareness training was the response detection and the response description. So now post that, which is intervention, the participant has to raise their hand every time the behavior occurs, the right hand. So, and let's say it was pen clicking. Every time she clicked the pen, the right hand had to be raised. Okay. The researcher would also raise the hand when observing the behavior. So basically, you're giving the speech, you're looking at a computer, the researcher is looking at you through the screen, and you can see the researcher when they raise their hand and you raise your hand, you can see that it's matching, right? After 5 instances that the researcher matches with the participant, the researcher will no longer deliver the prompt, okay? Unless it takes more than 2 seconds that the behavior occurred and the participant did not detect it, then the researcher will go in and deliver a prompt, right? So that was the post-awareness training. Then this will continue, the speech will continue, the post-awareness training will continue until the participant was aware of 100% of the occurrences of the target behavior, or 90% in 2 consecutive sessions. So that was kind of like the criteria you have to meet to kind of master the awareness training and go into the post-awareness assessment. Okay. Now, in the original study, this took a couple of tries, but with us in our study, we basically did it pretty fast. You can see in our graphs how, and that's kind of one of the limitations I want to bring up, because we kind of already knew our behaviors, and that kind of might have impacted our results a little bit. Okay. But that being said, if we did not meet the criteria, which we did, but if we didn't, then a booster session was delivered immediately following that, which means that we go back into the awareness training phase, which was, we deliver the whole steps again. So we do like the response detection, and the description. So we go back to do that. So the booster session will be implemented if it did not decrease at least 80%. But like you'll see in our graphs, we all did. Okay. And that will continue. Now, another difference, and then another part of the study would be that then we do the generality phase, which is we kind of want to generalize the skill we learned in front of a computer. So once we made 100%, then we want to kind of do the same process, but in front of actual live people. And that would be like the next step. And then now we're going to do inter-observer agreements.
So for inter-observer agreement data, that was calculated for 33% to 35% of the sessions across all students. And so for in baseline, each group member watched a different member's video recorded session. And then additionally, each group member recorded their own data for comparison. So if I was giving a speech, I would record data on my behavior. I would send it to, let's say, Carlos, and he would do data on my behavior, and then we would compare those, and that would be our IOA data for the baseline. Treatment was a little different, where two members other than the participant sat in on the intervention phases. And so if I was giving a speech, Emily and Carlos would be watching my speech. They would take data on it and then compare their data for that. And so for this, it was the smaller number divided by the larger number equals the decimal of agreement for the intervals. And each interval was added together and then divided by the total number of intervals. And then that number was multiplied by 100 to get our IOA percentage. For treatment fidelity, it was also gathered for 33% of the sessions per phase. Here, group members watched video recorded sessions from each phase and then scored those in relation to the implemented steps. And so basically what happened was the number of steps for each phase that Carlos just mentioned were written down, and then we would watch the videos, and if they were done correctly, we would say yes, that was how they were scored, and then that was divided by the total number of implementation steps. For the results, as Carlos said before, none of us actually needed a booster session, and because all of the behaviors decreased more than 80%, thus making it unnecessary for the booster session. All 4 people in the study actually exhibited a decrease in their nervous habits after the awareness training. And in baseline, all participants had a high level of target behaviors. And then following the awareness training assessment, all 4 had a decrease in target behaviors, which just supported the effectiveness of awareness training on nervous behaviors.
So as you can see in the graph, in my baseline, there was 4 sessions, which I delivered a speech without having done the post-awareness training, and my behaviors decreased significantly once the post-awareness training assessment, was conducted. In my baseline, the speeches I gave were pretty simple. They were like, what my favorite subject in school, what's my favorite sport, why do I like pets, where do I want to go on vacation. It was simple. And then the post-assessment training were similar questions. So, but as you can see, more than 80% decrease, and we continued our assessment, our post-assessment training contingent. So because we're in the multiple baseline, so everybody had to have 11 sessions. But yeah.
So in mine, I had 4 different videos in baseline. And again, my behavior was pauses. And mine was really high, and then it dipped down and went back up. I'm not really sure why that is. I think that I was maybe more prepared after my first 2 speeches just to give a speech, but then I was getting a little anxious after giving 4 speeches, and that's why I went back up. I just realized I said 4 behaviors. I meant 5, sorry. My baseline videos were also very simple. I talked about my favorite things pretty much: makeup, hair, Dancing with the Stars. I talked about my trip to Italy and how I met my husband. And then after awareness training, you can see that I had a decreasing slope there. It went down by the last session to basically almost nothing.
So for mine, I started out a little lower and increased and then went back down again for my baseline. As you can tell, my behavior was filler phrases, so I'm saying all the time. So basically, I'm not sure why it went down and then up and then down again. I think just in general, depending on what the topic was or whatever, the 10 minutes didn't seem like, it seemed like enough time, but then while I was giving my speech, it didn't necessarily seem like enough time. So I just got nervous, and I in general just get nervous when I'm giving speeches and use filler phrases a lot. But you can see after the awareness training, I just became more aware of it. And so that's why it kind of decreased pretty quickly. I became more aware and then got pretty annoyed at hearing myself say or like. And so I think that's why it decreased quick. So here you can see all of our graphs together and our multiple baseline across participants. So Carlos spent the least amount of time in baseline, and then Emily, and then myself. We were waiting until the data stabilized in baseline in order to move over to the treatment phase, in order to go through the awareness training, just to make sure that we would have stable data to work with after the intervention. And again, here's just our data table, kind of showing the numbers that went with the graph, and how many behaviors happened. Again, we took 15-second intervals across the speech and then did the frequency count that way.
So we will now go through Giselle's procedure and how she did hers a little differently than we did ours.
Hi, my name is Giselle. I will be presenting my procedure, graph, and limitations of the study. Due to vehicle restrictions here in the UAE, I was not able to implement the procedure exactly the same way as the original study. The original plan was to record myself and send my videos to our researcher Carlos. He'd take data and send them back to me, but it was time consuming, so we were only able to do this during baseline and baseline and awareness training. After that, we've consulted our instructor, and we were told that I could do the procedure differently, which what I will be discussing now. During baseline, I chose a topic on which to speak for 3 to 5 minutes and had 10 minutes to organize my speech and make notes. During my speech, I recorded myself alone in the room in front of a video camera. I used a timer set to 3 to 5 minutes to signal that the time is over. Unlike in the original study, where the principal investigator was present to signal the participant with the time. For example, raising a blank white sheet of paper to signal that there was 1 minute remaining, or a blank red sheet of paper to signal that the 5 minutes is over. Not having the principal investigator with me during my speech, I had to rely on the timer and waited for the timer to go off. I then sent my baseline videos to the researcher, Carlos. He recorded the occurrences of my target behavior, which he sent his data to me, and we compared our data. This is to make sure that we are both observing the same target behavior when we conduct the awareness training. During the awareness training, I chose a topic on which to speak to. On which to speak for 3 to 5 minutes and Prepare for 10 minutes. I delivered my speech the same way as I did during baseline, only this time I had to raise a hand every time there was the occurrence of my target behavior, which was clicking of pen. When the timer went off, the video recorder was stopped. The recorded videos were then sent to Carlos. The researcher watched my videos and recorded the occurrences of my target behavior in which I did not raise a hand. We compared our data and got a 100% IOA. During my intervention, I did the whole intervention part on my own without sending my videos. I recorded myself the same way as I did during the awareness training. I chose a topic on which to speak for 3 to 5 minutes, prepared for 10 minutes, and recorded myself. After recording myself, I watched my videos and identified all my target behaviors in which I did not raise my hand. Here's how my graph looked like. As you can see, during baseline, there was an increasing trend. My habit of clicking of pen increased when I delivered my speech on the topic how to say no, and it increased again when I delivered my speech on when to start saving for retirement. I felt that 10 minutes was not enough to organize my speech on randomly picked topics. And not being prepared made me more nervous, and the more I manifest those nervous habits, clicking off pen. During the intervention phase, my nervous habits gradually decreased. So even though I did not have the principal investigator with me to prompt me when there was the occurrence of target behavior, having the video camera in front of me served as my reminder. Recording my speech all throughout the intervention process made me more conscious, or made me more comfortable in delivering the speech in front of the camera, which I felt affected my behavior by reducing the occurrences of the target behavior. The limitations of the study. First, we were unable to implement the procedure exactly the same way as the original study. The original study required that all participants, the principal investigator, and the researcher were in the same room during all phases, baseline, training, and intervention, which was not feasible in our case. Baseline training and intervention took place through live sessions in Hangouts. Not being in the same room might have affected the behavior of both the participants and the principal investigator. The second limitation was video call restrictions, where one of the participants, myself, conducted the study differently from the original study. Having the principal investigator to prompt me when there was the occurrence of the target behavior might have increased my awareness on the occurrences of the target behavior. In addition, having someone in the room to remind me on how much time I had left might have affected the occurrence of the target behavior. Although my target behavior decreased during the intervention phase without the presence of the principal investigator, it was not clear which caused the decrease in the target behavior, whether self-recording or being more conscious on the occurrence of the target behavior because of the absence of the prompt. Some considerations for those who plan to replicate this study is to make sure that all participants are able to meet in person for the implementation of the procedure.
So to kind of go over the limitations Giselle went through right now, the big difference between the study that we did, the awareness training, and the way Giselle did it was that we could never do the one-on-one, contact. So it always has to be, she sends it and then we review it because of the internet restrictions where she's at right now. So the way we did it to kind of make it similar, instead of being present in the same and raising the hand like we did in our study, what I did is she sent me a video and I basically jot down every instance and exactly when it happened. So for example, if it happened, let's say 10 times, and I would mark it down. Okay, it happened 10 times, and I would let her know exactly in the second it happened during her video, so that way she could go back, and this would kind of like take care of the response detection part. Okay, so the description will be the same. We through emails we could do that. I'll describe what it looks like, what is an occurrence and what is not an occurrence. But however, the detection part had to be a little more tedious because I would have to watch the video and mark down every instance exactly when it happened. That way she can see it, and that's how we did it. That way, the other videos, she would have to send it back to me, and then she would, and then I observed if she detected 100% or not. She detected 100% of the occurrences, so we didn't need to continue with the intervention at that point.
Another thing, for those confused about the restriction, in Giselle's country, they are not allowed to have phone calls, video chats, or anything live like that. So she would be able to meet over email, like the Google Hangouts chat. And that was pretty much it. But then she could videotape herself, but she had to be by herself. She couldn't videotape us. So I'll go over the conclusion then. So basically the study evaluated the effectiveness of awareness training in reducing nervous habits that occur during public speaking. Each behavior was operationally defined, and then participants made videos to take baseline data on. Awareness training was done after baseline to make the participants aware of their behaviors as they are speaking. And the nervous habit behaviors decreased from high rates in baseline to very low rates after the post-awareness training assessment. And here is our citation of the article. And the contribution log. And that is all. Thank you very much for watching.